We're good to go. We're a few minutes late here.
All right, we're recording.
Thank you very much, Clay. Good morning, everyone out there in Zoom land.
Good morning.
We are going to get started here. So hope everyone's had a good week. Clay tells me her week's been very busy, but I suspect that's fairly typical of her RCD experience. All right. As is our custom, we will start with a roll call. We'll do kind of around the table here. There's not too many of us. So I will kick us off. Jim Spear, I am the co-facilitator for the Trinity County Collaborative.
Jill Cox, Board of Supervisors.
Carol Ball, Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department.
Clay, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. Clay Grutch, Trinity County Resource Conservation District.
Okay, we are going to go to our Zoom participants at this point. Jerry, you want to start us off?
Good morning, everybody. Jerry Cousins here.
Thank you. Good morning. Pat.
Pat Frost, Trinity Center Community Services District.
Good morning. Tuli.
Hey all, I'm Tuli Potts, Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Good to see you.
Good to be with you. Thank you. Arnold.
Arnold Whitridge, collaborative member. Hello.
Good morning, Arnold. Did you get your haircut?
Every year.
Okay. Looks good. All right. Cody.
Hi, Cody Carter. I work for the Forest Service. I'm a forester here on the Shasta Trinity National Forest.
Very good. Thank you very much. Xander.
Morning. I'm Ender Winter, forester at the Watershed Center.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Chris Cole.
Hey, morning, everybody. Chris Cole, district conservationist for the Natural Resource Conservation Service for Trinity County.
Very good. Welcome, Chris. Larry.
Hi, Larry Glass, represent SAFE and been with the collaborative since the beginning.
All right. Good morning, Larry. Heidi.
Morning, everyone. Heidi Carpenter Harris, District 4 Board of Supervisors, Trinity County.
Good morning, Heidi. And then we have, is that Janice Smith? It's a new name for me anyway. Janice, you want to introduce yourself? Maybe she's on mute. We got Jennifer Mata in the. We could bring her in. Jennifer, welcome. Good morning. You want to introduce yourself?
Sorry. Yeah. Good morning, Jennifer Mata, the Reading Field Office Manager.
All right. Well, welcome back, Jennifer. We missed you. Okay.
I'm unmuted.
There's a
Hi, this is Janice Smith. I'm from Trinity Alps Indivisible, and I had some questions about the South Fork Mountain Project and impacts to your process in general since Executive Order 14225 directing you to expand domestic logging. I was curious if that had affected your processes for pump review or environmental review.
Or just introductions.
We're just doing introductions at this point, Janice. We do have an agenda item regarding the South Fork Mountain Project. So if you want to hang in there, we will definitely get to that and give you opportunity for input on that project. How does that sound?
Yeah, thank you. Here I am.
Very good. There you are. All right. Good morning. Okay. I think everybody, Carol, or we missed some. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Deanna.
Oh, hi. I am a NEPA planner for the Six Rivers National Forest, and I am filling in for our line officer, Kristen Lark.
Very good. Thank you very much.
But don't expect too much of me, Janice. That's a.
Okay.
I'm mostly just taking notes.
Very good. All right. Okay. How about, is that it? I think we got everybody.
Kelly
Uh,
McElroy,
Jim, you
I'm
missed
here
Kelly.
from the
Kelly,
Shasta
okay.
Trinity. Kelly McElroy, I'm here from the Shasta Trinity. I'm the ecosystem staff officer out of Reading, and I haven't been on one of these calls for a while, so checking in with all you folks.
Great. Well, glad to have you, Kelly. Okay. Is that all we have? I think so. I did want to check on proxies. Any proxies this morning? I think we may have a vote on one agenda item, so I just wanted to see if we have any proxies. Don't see any hands or indications that we have so. All right.
Hey, Jim, I just have a question for Cody. Cody, are you standing in for Tara this morning?
Hey there. Yeah, I'm standing in for Roy and Troy this morning.
Oh, Roy, right. Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks.
Standing in.
Yeah.
Roy and Troy. So Tara is like,
So Kelly, you're probably standing in for Tara, correct?
I am. I'm standing in for Tara as the I'm out of the supervisor's office. So
Yeah.
so the line officers, or you'll give our Shasta or our Trinity Forest report, correct, Kelly?
I will defer most of the content to Cody and
All right.
will support where I can.
Do a little tag team there. That works. Okay. I believe we are done with roll call.
So before you go further, I just want to let you know, I'm going to be leaving after this first item, but I made sure to have Heidi on the call, but I rearranged my world to be here for that one discussion. So then I'm going to need to go. All right.
Okay. Agenda check. Carol.
So I would like to add an item to the agenda, which is the North Trinity County's Community Risk Reduction Project, because the EA is out and comments are due by May 20th. So,
Right, and I believe there's been a meeting kind of established.
right, so I just want to let the collaborative know where we're at on that and schedule upcoming meeting and all that. So I don't know where you want to put it on the agenda.
How about after that big ranch?
Sure.
That's kind of where I figured that was.
Or after the Rainier Long Canyon project, because it's
Okay.
kind of
We can do that.
tied together.
All right, did everybody catch that? We are adding an agenda item right in after that field tour discussion on Rainier Long Canyon regarding the North Lake Trinity County Risk Reduction Project. Anything else on the agenda we need to modify or change in any way? Not seeing any. We will move on here to our minutes from the March 20th meeting. Any issues there, edits, questions? Very good. Not seeing any. Public input? Not seeing any. Okay. We are going to start off here with a proposal. Hopefully all you have seen. We do have copies here, but that's not going to help anybody out in Zoom land. But Jerry and Pat put a proposal together, kind of a process adjustment for the collaborative. So Jerry, Pat, I'm not sure who wants to kick that one off.
Well, I could just start it and then Pat help me out.
Okay.
Just as Carol was describing the difficulty of timelines for collaborative to make recommendations on projects. Our memory is, although there's no documentation of it, is that the collaborative now works as an advisory group to the Board of Supervisors, who then reviews our recommendations, and then they possibly move that forward to have a letter written in support of whatever the recommendation is. And given the how quick Forest Service is moving projects through, the schedule of us actually doing work and getting it recommendations to the Forest Service timely is more and more challenging. So Pat and I were talking about that and came up with this kind of division that the collaborative can work specifically on project recommendations, but on policy issues such as the white paper, it then goes to the supervisors for processing. So our thought was we were accommodating the Forest Service so we can get information from the collaborative more quickly to the Forest Service as far as moving their projects forward and receiving input. So I think that was a quick recap. Pat, do you want to?
I think that covers it. Yeah, again, I think our observation over the last few months has been, and you can see it. I mean, and it's not just Forest Service; it's also BLM.
Right.
That projects are on a conveyor belt that's moving at a pretty good clip. I mean, we've got right now before us, we have the South Fork project. We just had the BLM Jennings Ridge project. Got the North Lake project. We got, the Junction project,
South Fork.
the big ranch project. All these are coming through really quickly. And we just thought we could be more effective with helping the Forest Service through our collaborative process with this somewhat streamlined approach, kind of diverting project reviews that didn't have to go all the way through the Board of Supervisors. You got 3 calendars that you're trying to match up. You've got the NEPA calendar that the agencies are using to develop these environmental documents. You've got the Board of Supervisors calendar that involves 2 meetings a month, and a week in advance of those meetings having to have materials to the county for their inclusion. And it just seems really, really like we're not going to be very effective unless we figure out some way to get our thoughts forwarded to the board, to the county, or to the agencies somewhat more quickly. And this is nothing bad. I mean, we kind of wrote this just to get the discussion going.
Okay, go, Carol.
Yeah, I kind of wish Taro was here because Taro is the one that really wanted some formal way for the collaborative to, comment on projects in a timely manner. I think it would really help the Forest Service to have, not just the collaborative, talking at the field trips and this is what we think, this is what we think. Not everybody's at the field trips, but have the collaborative at a meeting, at a vote, which is what we used to do. Say to the Forest Service, this is our comments on this project. And then the Forest Service can say, yep, this is what we got from the collaborative and let's go forward. Because right now they're just getting kibitz from side to side. So anyway, I thought this was a good kind of, middle way, where the broad policy goes to the Board of Supervisors, but the specific project comments, which are pretty detailed, that's something that the collaborative, I thought our purpose. Anyway, made sense to me.
So Kelly, did you and Tara have a conversation before you're jumping on here today?
We did. Yes.
So, because I did as well, but I don't want to jump on your toes. I feel like if you have things to share that Carol's wanting to hear from Tara's perspective, maybe that would be good.
She also filled me in on the conversation that you two had. And so I think, we absolutely want to hear from the collaborative and having, as well as the individuals that make up the collaborative, but having a diverse set of comments characterized by the collaborative is becoming uncomfortable, and it would be good to hear in one voice, this is that the collaborative is supporting our project. And the Board of Supervisors stands behind that. That's yes. You can share to Jill.
Okay, so yeah, I just would say from Tara's perspective, how much she emphasized great appreciation for the collaborative.
Absolutely.
And that it absolutely provides clarity and that in, you know, recent instances, it, I think, underscores the need for that clarity and these conversations. I think the piece that is also, however important, is, and this is like a point of discussion, because with, I don't understand where FACA would, I mean, obviously the forest can hear from anybody on, you know, comments can be submitted straight to the forest, and you can certainly have your voice in your comments. But as a collaborative's sort of, I'll just call it a charter, I don't really know how else to describe it because it's a very formal thing, that once that sort of voice is made from this charter, that conversation has to end up being like a government to government voice. And in order to hold, I guess, authenticity to the end, you know, the completion of that voice, it seems like the way that it is now, like if the sort of 30-day comment period hadn't been shortened to 2 weeks and put that constraint on it, which I personally am so pleased at your pace and scale, because we want our communities protected and your work is appreciated. What I would suggest is that the piece here that, and Pat's exactly right, with the board only having meetings twice a month, and for every Tuesday meeting, if I'm going to put something on the agenda, I need to at least have a placeholder for that by the previous Wednesday at 11 a.m. Now, once the placeholder is on there, the document that fills in that space can be submitted all the way to like Friday morning. That gives you a little extra time, because for a normal meeting, there's a 72-hour required, you know, publishing period. But you always have the opportunity to schedule special meetings. And with Heidi being chair right now, I'll let her speak to this, but a special meeting only requires 24 hours notice. And so if there was something that was coming down and you're trying to hit a deadline, we certainly can do that.
I just, I don't think that's practically going to work. And so I guess my question, I appreciate that that's the offer, and, you know, but with these shortened timeframes, I just, and when you'd have to have a special meeting, the collaborative would have to have a special meeting potentially to meet your timeframes. I see two things happening. One is, I don't understand why the collaborative's comments couldn't be the same as any other group. You know, Sierra Club sends in comments. You know, why does the collaborative have to go through FACA if it's, as our group is sending comments?
And maybe you
And
don't.
the Board of Supervisors, yeah, government to government, you guys need to meet FACA stuff. But if the collaborative says, these are our comments as a group, I don't understand why they have to meet FACA. And if it does mean they have to meet FACA, what that means is that the collaborative, if we want to remain an effective group, has to break away from the Board of Supervisors. And I don't want to see that happen.
Okay, so the question that remains outstanding, and maybe, I mean, I was not trying to take over your leadership here, there's an individual speaking, but I would like to understand if anybody does know the facts surrounding FACA.
Yeah, I mean, we've got.
Well, let's let Larry comment here first, and then we can address the FACA question.
Well, just for historical perspective, we have been doing this through the Board of Supervisors since the beginning of the collaborative. So what,
And I believe it's reflected in the bylaws.
2013. So we've been doing it that way. So if we've been violating FACA, it's news to me. But the reason I had my hand up is I think there's another side to the coin that Pat and Jerry were talking about. And that other side is that we have these field trips, very productive field trips, but there's lots of little side discussions that go on. And Forest Service sometimes comes away from those meetings thinking they've heard from the collaborative. I want this process to be more clear and formalized so that we understand that they only are hearing from the collaborative officially when there's a meeting and there's a vote. Not I mean, I think comments on field trips are really important, and they should be heard, but the formal discussion at a collaborative meeting and a vote, that's when the collaborative is taking a position.
Very good. Pat.
So kind of playing off of what Larry was saying, I think that's really important. It's important also to remember that at least what Jerry and I wrote up preserves and protects the supermajority vote that's required for something to move forward from the collaborative to either the Board of Supervisors or to the Forest Service or BLM directly. And to his point about all this, the informal conversations and the impressions that people leave with from the field trips, it made me think of in the current EA for the North Lake project. There's a statement that says they collaborated with the collaborative. The Forest Service collaborated with the collaborative. But what's that mean? I mean, yeah, we had 2 or 3 field trips, but we never, I mean, it's amorphous. You can't put your hands on it, on what it is that the collaborative provided to the Forest Service can be taken lots of different ways and out of context. And I agree. I think we're just trying to make sure that we haven't done a formal review and approval of a project. I can't think since when, maybe, I guess it'd be some of the ones over in the Mad River District were probably the last ones that we actually took votes on a few years ago. So that's all we're trying to propose. And I don't have an answer to the FACA question, but I do just observationally see, the Forest Service has has regular meetings with the industry and gets recommendations from the industry. The collaborative or the Forest Service and BLM go to the Fire Safe Council meeting and get recommendations from them. The Weaverville Community Forest has, steering committee meetings, and the Forest Service and BLM get recommendations from that organization. And none of those have ever run into the filter of the FACA issue. But I realize that is out there as something to be contended with somehow.
All right. Thank you, Pat. I just have a real quick kind of process question because, and just based on last meeting, I believe what Tara was looking for in terms of this more formalized process is clearly what you and Larry are alluding to. But I guess what I'm questioning is how do we get to that one pager, right, with recommendations that we can put before the collaborative to actually take a vote on? Because I don't recall that ever occurring, at least in my tenure here. So how does that happen?
So Larry and I, the original members can tell you, we have voted on stuff where a member has brought an issue to the collaborative. It's been on things like the houseboats,
Dogs too.
No, the houseboats, some of the changes in Forest Service policy. And so.
And the money that you guys have gotten through the Joint Chiefs or whatever it's called these days, we've done that 3 or 4 different times.
So, yeah. So what my point is, the collaborative since 2013 has taken votes on issues and presented a document then to the Board of Supervisors. And sometimes it's a specific project like Minersville or the houseboats, and sometimes it's a broad policy. But this is not new. It's just we have not done it recently.
And how it worked for, say, a fuels project, a forestry project, is there is the forestry subgroup.
Okay.
They would take on the more detailed review of those projects and then present to the full collaborative their recommendations in what you described as like a one-page whatever.
Yeah.
Or the recreation committee, would forward. You can recall I drafted a couple of 3 letters,
Yep.
that were generated from the discussions at the recreation committee that then went to the full collaborative, that then went to the board of supervisors.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
No,
not
that helps. I just,
Yeah,
I haven't seen that occur much, but
And
it
first
seems like there are
48.
mechanisms in place to facilitate that. Yeah.
First
Okay.
48, which was a timber sale on the Mad River District, that went through the full process and went to the Board of Supervisors and got approved.
And it's not
Okay.
usually a paper that's presented, it's after field trips. And everybody's seen it and discussed it, and then somebody just, comes to the table and says, let's vote on the recommendation for this project.
Okay, we got Arnold's hand up. Arnold.
Well, it seems to me FACA has never been a breath of a problem for us. It seems to me that the Board of Supervisors should feel comfortable delegating the ability to comment or even recommend on projects to the collaborative group. And that could be subject to later board review and even reversal. But gee whiz, the board has appointed this committee. The board has unanimously embraced the policy paper that we submitted last year. I don't think the board has ever failed to support a collaborative recommendation. So it seems to me that the board could sidestep or avoid any problems by delegating the ability to comment on projects subject to subsequent board review as desired.
Thank you,
Thus
Arnold.
ends my presentation.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Okay. Any further comments, discussion on this?
I just want to clear up one potential misunderstanding. Arnold no, it wasn't Arnold, it was Larry. Someone had said, well, I don't think that we have violated FACA to date. And that's upside down of the concern I was expressing. I don't think anyone has violated it to date. I'm concerned because I don't understand the nuances of that agreement or directive or rules, if you will, to find out that if you didn't go through board approval, if there was a violation of something that is required there.
But FACA is a federal process, so
Right, and
I don't know that there's applicability here, given that this is kind of a local established committee.
it applies to things like the Resource Advisory Council because, they're a chartered thing and they spend federal money. And so, yeah, like the RAC is definitely FACA, has to follow all the rules, but I don't know about I don't see why the collaborative would be in that boat.
Yeah. Okay. Larry.
Yeah, this question has come up in the past. And my understanding, and I would maybe Kelly McElroy will remember this. She's been around for a while, but I thought that the Forest Service Legal Counsel reviewed the relationship between the Board of Supervisors and the Forest Service and said that FACA didn't apply. So
yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Arnold, are you still having your?
Well, just a note that once you get FACA involved, any meeting under FACA has to be in the Federal Register 45 days before the meeting. So it kills everything.
And it's been taking for the RAC, it was taking 8 weeks to get that notice in the Federal Register.
So Pat,
Well, those
you are where I got the impression that that was applicable to this group. Are you now telling me you're of the opinion that it is not applicable?
I didn't mean to tell you that I thought it was applicable. I just said that that was, that was an unknown.
Okay, fair.
Again, typically, at least for most FACA chartered committees I'm familiar with, having spent 40 years in the federal government, these are secretarial appointments too.
Right.
Knowledge,
right.
no collaborative members have been, appointed by any, high level federal,
That's why it
person.
applies to the RAC, because
Right.
we're appointed.
Correct. And the TAMWAG that I used to sit on with the Trinity River Restoration, same
Yeah.
with the FACA chartered group. And yeah, so I don't believe this would be applicable. Jerry, go ahead.
I wanted to comment on the statement that Pat brought up about in the North Lake document that they collaborated with the collaborative. I think a more specific would be we've collaborated with individual members of the collaborative, but they have not collaborated with the collaborative that needs a vote for a recommendation for a project. So kind of is a misnomer.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Let's get Monique. Monique, I don't believe we've had opportunity to have you introduce yourself, but then we'll get your questions. So,
Oh, yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Monique, Forest Partnership Coordinator on the Shasta Trinity, and also supporting the both Shasta and Trinity County Resource Advisory Committees, although they are currently inactive right now. But yeah, so we are pretty familiar with the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which is what FACA stands for, because both those committees are guided by those policies under that act. With that being said, the charter for the Trinity County Collaborative, as it's written, I believe does provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, who then recommend projects or project actions to the Forest Service. I think that process is probably is the appropriate route to go through this collaborative. However, I think we could look into it further, but I think by doing that process, getting recommendations over to the Board of Supervisors is that's where FACA is not being applied. Because if recommendations were directly provided to the Forest Service, then that is a different story. But I don't know what constitutes a recommendation, because we definitely want community input. We want to have a collaborative relationship with the public and make sure that we are making good decisions in the public's interest. So having input from various different entities is extremely helpful, but I think it's when we have a formal recommendation coming from any given entity that's where it could be some gray area.
So Monique, the collaborative, to be able to make recommendations, has to have an 80% approval vote, official vote.
And that's just our bylaws, essentially.
Right. We just kind of pulled the number out of the air and said, oh, 80% sounds like it works.
So, I was with the original collaborative, from day one, and I will say two things. One is, when we were setting up our group, we talked about how to be the most effective in terms of comments, and the thought was that going through the Board of Supervisors, we would have a louder voice than just some random group. So that's one of the reasons we went through the Board of Supervisors. And the second was the Board of Supervisors already had a natural resources committee that I was on that was going away. So this was kind of to replace the natural resources committee, kind of providing comments to the Board of Supervisors. And so, there's no reason the main reason we were going through the Board of Supervisors is we thought that the Forest Service would listen to them more. I don't think the collaborative realized at the time how cumbersome that project was, especially in light now of the shortened time frames. So I just want to throw that in there, the old fart kind of perspective.
Thank you. Arnold?
I was wondering if Monique would comment on if there's a distinction between the collaborative forming its own opinion and transmitting that, and not calling it a recommendation, but calling it, here's how a big supermajority of an appointed advisory body to the Board of Supervisors
We're not
feels.
appointed. Except we're not appointed, Arnold, we're all just random people who volunteer.
Right.
Well,
Committees.
the board blessed and convened the collaborative.
Right.
Yeah,
For every other appointment
but we can't.
mentioned we've had so far has been appointment by the Interior Secretary. So whatever word you want to use, we're a group blessed by the Board of Supervisors, and here's how we feel. Period. We don't recommend or demand anything yet. The board can subsequently recommend or demand. Would
Right.
that make a difference?
You're basically taking a position, right? And whether that can be interpreted as a recommendation, as a subject to,
because that's what Tara's asking us for, is how we feel.
You want you to take a position, right? And put it on paper.
And so could we, Monique, does it seem like we could form a position and communicate that without running into FACA trouble?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is a right way to do it, but because I'm only familiar of a very specific instance of when FACA applies to a congressionally designated through the Secure Rural Schools Act, I would have to look into it further to see how it apply or how it may not apply to this committee. So I am not completely familiar with the ins and outs of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. However, I can look into it and make sure that we're compliant with not having to trigger FACA.
I don't think we are. I really don't
get back to
I mean,
folks.
we've been around since 2013 and we've followed this process that we set up. And have never been told that we are a FACA chartered committee. In what's that, 12 and a half years. We set up our own bylaws essentially, and those bylaws, you don't have to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors. You have to attend 2 meetings before you can say something or vote on something. And then there's rules for who gets kicked out. If you don't come to a certain number of meetings, you're no longer a member. That's all just stuff we set up. I mean, it's totally informal. I mean, the Board of Supervisors didn't, have any input to that. Forest Service didn't have any input to that. And so it's just like, we're just a group that is trying to provide comments to the Forest Service or the federal agencies on federal projects.
But you are authorized by the Board of Supervisors. That's why you exist.
Well, that documentation, I think Pat and Jerry looked for that. You guys did not find that, right?
Correct.
Well, whether they could find it or not, that is how we were set up in the first place.
Right.
I was at that Board of Supervisors meeting where they gave us our blessing. I was way back in the meeting.
I was too.
What I was going to say, have my hand up, and that is, since Kelly is here in place of Tara, I would ask Kelly to ask Tara to formally request from the Forest Service Legal Counsel that you have access to a determination on whether or not we're borderline running afoul of FACA or not, and get this cleared up once and for all.
Very good, Larry. I think that would definitely clear it up. Kelly, you want to comment on that? I think I see your hand up. Yeah.
I can definitely do that.
Okay.
Absolutely. But I did have my hand up also.
Go ahead.
So from the Forest Service position, we we appreciate working with all of you in the collaborative, and it I gotta say it breaks my heart a little bit to when I hear that unless there's a vote, we didn't collaborate with the collaborative, because we do listen to your input and hold field trips and invest a lot of time to make sure that we are putting out projects that we're all pretty proud of, and really, reducing risk around communities and doing the right thing in the right places. So if the only way to be able to share share with others in our document, that we do have that relationship with the community and with the collaborative is to be going to a vote, then I think that that's a very important thing to be doing. So that's my input.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Okay, well, we've had a very robust discussion here. It seems to me, and I'll just put this out there, that given Larry's request of Tara that she explore the legalities of the collaborative in the context of FACA, that maybe we're not in a position to vote today on this proposal. Is that kind of how I'm reading the tea leaves here, Pat, Jerry? What's your sense?
My sense is that we probably could vote on it given a determination of any bump into FACA rules. So,
okay,
we get a sense of the collaborative if they want to move forward with it, given that we're not bending any rules.
Okay, well, if you're gonna take a vote, then I'd like to have a little more discussion.
Okay.
And so here's a point of concern. What happens when, and I think Arnold or Larry, one of you, brought the suggestion that if the collaborative were to take their 80% vote and submit that to the forest, and because of timelines, and then subsequent to that, the board took a look at it and said, actually, we are not in agreement with that sort of retroactively, there could be on the timeline that works for all the schedules and so forth, a statement to the forest saying, okay, well, that was what 80% of the collaborative, believed to be sort of the collective opinion, but the board does not see it that way. That could happen afterward, that would meet people's timelines. I just want to leave space for, there's a possibility the board would disagree with the collaborative. And, that doesn't, I don't want that to cancel the voice of the collaborative. This is the voice of a group of people that is very important, that has field trips and has, historic knowledge and has professional knowledge and so forth. But there can be points in time when the board is going to look at things from a perspective that is
broader.
Yes.
Yeah.
But do you,
yeah.
okay, but do you think that, so the broader projects, yeah, I could see where the board is looking at the 30,000 foot broader picture, but on detailed projects where, again, someone that has been on the field trips, really looked at the environmental documents, done all that detailed work, do you think the board's going to overrule that project specific kind of comment?
So there's two perceptions of this term broader. So the one that I feel like I hear you saying is looking at a project. Are we looking at the project really into the weeds, or are we looking at the project from a broader perspective? That is not the term, that's not the definition of that word that I'm using right now. It would be more to do with outcomes. For an example, is a possibility, a collaborative opinion could be, we are really on the ground about this project and we say no. The board could be, in this broader sense as I'm describing, looking at potential outcomes if you didn't do that project,
Like economics.
like impact to communities, like impact to local business, like impact to loss of tax revenue if things burn down, that kind of broader. And the other piece too is that when the board is considering it, it's not just what 5 people say. There's public input that gets brought into that decision when that's on an agenda that takes in parts of the public that are not a part of this group, whose opinions also. But I just am like to bring it full circle from that example as a possibility of something that could happen. As long as you've got a mechanism to circle back, if that mechanism was a week later or 2 weeks later, you know, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying I think there's a way for you to say your piece to the forest timely and the board to follow up on that with agreement or disagreement subsequent.
Jill, Larry.
I think that's always it's a fact of life. I mean, it's always been that way, and so
Yeah,
I think
that's what I'm going to say too, Arnold. You're correct. It's always been that way. The board has always had the opportunity to not agree with the collaborative. We're an advisory group to the Board of Supervisors. That's how it was originally set up. We may be uncomfortable about that today, but that is how it was set up. And we're just supposed to advise the Board of Supervisors. We can also be advising the Forest Service in the meantime, but that's how we were originally set up.
Arnold.
It's not really a choice for us to get rid of that fact of life or.
Whoa.
So,
Susan, can you put yourself on mute?
So I would like to make a motion that we approve the procedure presented by Pat and Jerry. We understand that the Board of Supervisors can always have its own opinion and override it in this and other cases. But we recommend that if this motion passes, the proposal goes to the board for review itself and comment and I guess reversal. But then at least we're on the record as supporting the proposal. The next step would be people would want to know, does the collaborative support this proposal? My motion is let's support it.
All right, thank you, Arnold. Is there a second to Arnold's motion?
I'll
second it.
Okay, Larry.
Okay, we'll take Larry's second.
And we also realize, just by way of discussion, that the findings of Kelly or Tara or Monique or the legal counsel could alter or require us to reconsider. Fine. That's always the case too also.
This is Heidi. I have something to add just as a thought, if I may.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I would just like to say that because the collaborative is recognized as an advisory organization to the board, and I've heard completely and believe that it is accurate that we're not required in any way to maybe agree or disagree. It will be up to the board to decide whether or not they approve or disapprove. What I would like maybe is a possibility to add something in. If a letter is going forward to the Forest Service from the collaborative or to some other organization that's from the collaborative, I would like there to be some kind of, not necessarily a disclaimer, but some kind of a statement that reads that the collaborative is in fact an advisory council, but is not speaking on behalf of the board. The Board of Supervisors will either support or not in following documentation, because I think it would be easy for someone who's maybe not been in these types of conversations to assume that a authorization or a promotion or what have you coming from the collaborative would have an automatic approval from the board, just on kind of if they only had like a baseline understanding of how the collaborative and the board of supervisors works together. Inside of this conversation, we now recognize that that's not the case, but I just would like to ensure in the future that a letter from the collaborative that everybody realizes doesn't automatically meet support from the board of supervisors.
We've never done that in the whole time of our existence. Any letter we've ever done has been taken to the board to be approved. We've never sent a letter as the collaborative without board sign off on it.
Okay, then I'm a little bit confused, and maybe you can help me understand. I would enjoy to understand. So if we just were talking about if there was something that the collaborative wanted to speak into with the Forest Service, and there wasn't time for it to go before the board prior to your need to speak into it, you want to speak into it coming specifically from the collaborative without having the board's like yes or no on that letter. It's just you guys adding your commentary and your great depth of knowledge into the conversation. Okay, so that's one thing that I've heard, and maybe I heard that wrong. And then that same letter later, as per agendas work out, would then come before the board, and the board would be able to say, yes, we wholeheartedly agree with the letter you've already received, or we agree with this portion, and this is coming from the board saying we'd like to adjust for this.
I think that's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, so my ask then is, out of curiosity, is if I'm the individual and I receive a letter from the collaborative that says we 100% support this project, Heidi, and it's from the Trinity County Collaborative, and I say, okay, golly, that's great, and I'm super excited about that. What I want to make sure of is that me, who's maybe not been in these deep conversations, understands that that doesn't automatically give me an approval from the board of supervisors. So how do we make sure that we're not one and doneing it for people who don't necessarily understand that there is a relationship, but we speak as individuals?
My motion includes the decision that we will make a statement to that effect below our signature.
So Arnold, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm understanding your motion to be to adopt the proposal as written with 3 additions. One is that any project-specific recommendations are submitted to the Board of Supervisors for a later review.
It says that in the proposal. That's bullet number 3.
Number 3, I don't see a 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
to keep the board of supervisors
never mind.
informed.
So then there's just 2 amendments to your proposal. One is that the adoption of this proposal is depending on the legal opinion that we get from the Forest Service, and that there's a
regarding FACA.
Yeah, regarding FACA.
Right.
And that there's a disclaimer that the collaborative's not speaking for the Board of Supervisors. Something like that?
Yes. Yeah, I call them understandings, but we can call them amendments if you want. I would like to just clarify that very early on in our life, there was a letter that was signed by me and Clarence Rose and Richard Seal, commenting on, I forget the name of the sale, the one in Hayfork, a salvage sale up on the hill. Sorry?
Stafford Fire. The Stafford Fire.
Yeah, the Stafford Fire. And so before I transmitted that, I did copy the 2 supervisors who were cooperating with us and got no objection. And so that happened at the beginning. And as I don't remember it ever happening again, but that was maybe before we had our bylaws, or maybe we didn't understand the bylaws yet, but it did happen. We said, here's, and we didn't speak for the Board of Supervisors. We said, here's how the collaborative feels about the Stafford document, just as a matter of clarity.
That was before the bylaws were formally adopted.
Right.
Could
Yeah.
be. It could be.
And one understanding to clarify is that the streamlined process that's in this proposal, it says just to provide the Board of Supervisors with an annual report of its project reviews. I'm understanding that we want to give them a copy of whatever comments we sent in so they can review and then amend or approve or whatever. So there's actually three things we understand.
Well, cancel the second one and replace it with what you just said. That's part of my motion, is to
amend
any
that third
communication with the Forest Service
Or BLM.
making a big suggestion would be copied immediately or simultaneously to the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
It seems to me, well, you should probably wait and see if the individual who seconded that agrees with your amendment.
Yes,
Larry,
I
you agree with
do.
that? All right.
Okay. Okay, so further discussion, I'm wondering, your bylaws right now do not agree, are not in compliance with this proposal. It seems to me like you need to change your bylaws and you need to change who you are. You can still act as a recommending body to the Board of Supervisors, but it looks like you're trying to kind of have a dual role in, we want to speak into the Forest Service and we want to recommend that the board would consider what we say and either affirm that and in so doing, like, strengthen it, or you have the freedom to disagree and the forest would realize we've got, different opinions from two different bodies.
Okay, I amend the motion again to say that we adjust the bylaws accordingly, or probably the bylaws require that a change in the bylaws requires notice, so we set in motion the process for amending the bylaws accordingly. But now this is our position. We would like this to happen with the amendments, and the bylaws eventually or be adjusted as necessary. So that's our
Arnold,
idea. We would like to move in this direction.
Could we just send an amendment to our bylaws to the Board of Supervisors that have this proposal?
Well, you're
I
kind of
think
doing,
so. That
you're agreeing
it may
amongst
be
yourselves that you want to, and then further, you probably need to then send it to the board to change sort of your relationship.
Well, we were going to send this to the board. So we weren't just going to say this is our change. We were going to send this to the board, right?
Yeah, for the board's approval.
Yeah.
So it's essentially amending our bylaws anyway. Right, Arnold? So if we send this to the board for their approval, we could just, write it in a way that it is amending the bylaws.
I think so. That's my intent. I don't have the bylaws language in front of me, and it may be there's a elaborate process for amending the bylaws.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then we'll follow it. But we're proposing to the board, this is how we would like to proceed, and we will proceed if you bless it.
Okay, as your facilitator, I'm feeling compelled to at least do a little agenda check here. We are on the first agenda item, just to remind everyone, and we are now 1 hour into our meeting. So I realize this is an important topic, but we do have a motion and a second out there, and we've had lots of discussion. Anybody that has not spoken would like to contribute to the dialogue and discussion at this point?
I feel that artificial intelligence note taker will succeed in making a very concise and accurate summary of the motion.
And
In that
just for
36
clarity, as the second of the motion that's been amended a bunch of times, I approve all the amendments that Arnold has made.
All right, thank you, Larry. Are we ready for a vote?
Let's call for the question.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Sounds like we have 100% consensus. So motion approved. Are we all clear on?
Don't go there, Jim. Don't go there.
Yeah, wait for the AI summary.
Just move on.
So who will take it up? I assume maybe Pat or Jerry will incorporate or do the amendments to this proposal so that.
I guess so.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll figure
All right.
something out. Yep.
Moving on,
Good luck.
like Jerry indicated.
And then one of you are going to work with myself or Heidi to get that on a board agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jill.
Yes, thank you all.
All right. Okay, so as I indicated, we just concluded our first agenda item, so we've got to accelerate things a little bit. So up next, we have Big Ranch. Now, I realize just by monitoring some of the email traffic and communications that much has changed on Big Ranch from the Forest Service perspective in terms of timing and timelines that were addressed at our previous meeting in March. So Cody, is that you? Do you want to take that up in terms of just kind of bringing us up to speed on where we sit, or is there someone else that Kelly, who can bring us up to speed on Big Ranch and timelines that are associated with it?
Yeah, I can give you some updates. So just to summarize the email, basically, as North Trinity is coming, is rounding the corner to being finalized, and I know Ben has a discussion kind of lined up with you guys doing kind of a similar thing on Big Ranch, that we're a lot of focus from review from the SO and other input is being focused on North Trinity, that it's kind of pushed out the Big Ranch timelines slightly. I wouldn't say much, but it has pushed it out. And the idea is that once North Trinity is complete, we'll have more time to focus on the Big Ranch review. And then we just want to make sure that as some of these comments are coming from folks that help review and provide feedback, that once that feedback's provided, we could all group up together and have the most complete draft EA in hand, so that we're providing a complete package and nothing changes at a later date, if that makes sense.
Okay, Cody. So again, all those kind of specific dates that were discussed in March, those aren't applicable anymore, correct? And I guess you'll circle back to the collaborative in terms of when we can get some dates on a calendar to get that Big Ranch review going again.
Yeah. So as far as the discussion for having prescriptions in hands and discussing all the Big Ranch details, I guess we wanted to discuss that here of when would be the next best time for folks to review that, if we are going to push that date out.
Hey, Susan,
Yeah.
we're getting feedback. Thank you.
Yep, there we go. Thank you, Susan. All right, Cody. Yeah, thank you. Any questions from the collaborative on the Big Ranch process timeline?
So right now, we erase all reserved dates for meetings or field trips for Big Ranch.
It sounds like to me, Arnold, is that a confirmation, Cody?
I believe we would be wanting to move those dates back around a month, if that makes sense. So if there's slots to push that out a month, that would be ideal.
But again, you'll circle back with the collaborative about
yes
dates in July then?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Anything else on Big Ranch from
I just want to add that one of the reasons we're doing this is because with these expedited timelines, we certainly didn't want you to have two going at the same time or roll right into North Trinity into Big Ranch and have a break. I know it's a load on, or we know it's a load on you all as well as us. So anyway, just that played into some of the delay there for Big Branch, but it's still rolling forward and on track, just a little bit delayed. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, we are going to move on. April 17th field tour discussion, Rainier Long Canyon project. Who wants to kick that off from the collaborative or from the Forest Service? Either one. Anybody present want to, Carol?
Okay.
Okay.
People who were at the field trip, correct me if I'm wrong. So I thought it was a really good field trip. We had great information, sharing. We had people from the industry really explaining, the practicalities of how things worked, which was very, very useful. My takeaway was that I understood better the discrepancies between our white paper and the Forest Service prescriptions. So the prescriptions as far as canopy, like the minimum 40% that we saw at Bowerman Ridge, only apply within certain distance of the owl cores. Outside of those distances, there's a more 40 to 60% minimum, depending on whether it's foraging, nesting, or roosting. Outside of the foraging, nesting, roosting areas, there's no minimum canopy. The prescriptions drop down to basal area in terms of square feet per acre. So they may drop down from in the foraging, roosting, nesting areas, it might be 160, 140 to 180 square feet per acre. Outside of those, it drops down to 60 to 80, which is a lot lower, which is why we were seeing a lot less canopy. So anyway, I did finally understand that discrepancy between what the white paper thought we were getting versus what we were seeing in the field.
It's a huge discrepancy, is what you're saying. You're being so kind. I mean, the white paper in no way excludes non-habitat. The white paper covers all forested lands, federal forested lands. It doesn't, there's no exception for non-habitat areas. So that was a big misunderstanding and a huge error for not double checking with the collaborative to make sure, because taking it down to 20% canopy, which is what has happened on Rainier Ridge, that's not acceptable under the white paper at all.
And we also learned more about landings. I would say the white paper says landings are a quarter acre. The prescription for Rainier says half acre. And they were kind of strung along the ridge like string of pearls, which made it look even more open because of trying to protect a road, which they did on Rainier, which they didn't do on Bowerman. So there was also a learning curve in terms of what landings would potentially look like versus what they did look like at Bowerman. So those were my two major learnings.
And it seems like they they would put two landings. They would call them two landings, but they put them adjacent to each other, across the road from each other.
Yeah.
So we ended up with much more bigger space than we had thought we would.
Did they, I wasn't on the field trip. Did they explain the damage to the road that has that potential if you're crossing a road? Because we do like to not cross roads with
Yeah.
with
Yes,
logs.
they
Yeah,
did.
we discussed that. We
They did.
discussed that, but
Okay.
They did explain that, but the issue was Bowerman Road is the same kind of traveled road as Rainier Road, so it was not clear why they drug logs across Bowerman Ridge Road, but they could not drag logs across Rainier Ridge Road. So that was they tried to explain protecting the road, but again, if they're holding Bowerman Ridge as a example of what things look like, there was a definite disconnect between what we thought was happening on Bowerman being transferred over to Rainier, and it was not even close.
Same logger?
Same logger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they were crossing
part
the
of it.
road?
For part of it.
They were crossing the road in Bowerman? I would be surprised.
If you go out there, there's a lot smaller landings, and yeah, the landings there were logs in the road when I drove out there.
Pat.
I think another thing that we learned, or that we observed during this field trip, is that Tara invited the sale administration staff to be on this field trip, and especially with a shift away from marking sales and doing designation by prescription, that it's really important that somebody be informing the sale administration staff of what the white paper is intending to have happen also.
Well,
Okay.
it was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kelly.
So we were very, very deliberate in bringing in a lot of those elements to the prescription. I have worked with that team quite a bit, and the white paper was up front and center. So I'm hoping that you do see that in it.
Unfortunately not, because the white paper has canopy prescriptions, and the areas outside of the OWL activity centers drop down to basal area. And so some of the language in the white paper about preserving the largest, healthiest trees and shade and all that are not in the prescription.
The largest and healthiest trees and the hardwoods and all of that is still in the prescription. And that, and it,
field.
it only, so it's also hard after the fact to know what the structure was before. I mean, the areas that aren't habitat didn't have big trees beforehand. So
Stumps don't lie.
There's huge trees. We saw them that got cut down in a row. Sorry, Xander. Has his hand up?
Xander.
Yeah, so first off, I want to clarify that there are no prescriptions in the white paper. There's no numerics on canopy cover, what it should be or what it shouldn't be. It merely mentions retaining the best, healthiest, site appropriate trees that will provide the most shade for the longest amount of time. It doesn't say anything about how many to retain, what the canopy specs should be after the fact. And I think that is important because if you're doing any kind of work in a place where you have a hard time meeting that even before operations. It really kind of constrains what treatments you could do. I think from my recollection, the explanation about where the landings were, how many landings there were, and how large they were, as it relates or doesn't relate to Bowerman. The terrain is different on the Rainier Road portion, where as compared with Bowerman, that's, essentially all flat. This Rainier Road piece the road rides right up the ridge. And so, without building a lot more new temp roads, that was the justification that I remember for where the landings had to be at. So I just wanted to add my recollection.
You bet. Thank you, Xander. Okay, any other comments or discussion on the tour?
Yeah, I just want to point out that when we went down to the lower portion that was managed by Trinity River Lumber, we did not see the excess that we saw on Rainier Road. The landings were smaller, and it seemed that the white paper prescription was being somewhat followed in that, whereas it wasn't even close to being followed on Rainier Road at all. And I think that's really important to point that out. There was a lot of explanation and excuses as to why there was so much destruction up there. And I feel like the excuses were, a lot of them were legitimate excuses, but the outcome is still the outcome. And it's not a project I'd ever want to see repeated again anywhere.
All right, thank you, Larry. Xander, you got your hand up again?
Yep. I also think it's important to note that the Long Canyon portion that Trinity River Lumber is the purchaser on was not done being implemented yet. And from what I remember, I think it was the same prescription as the Rainier Road section, but we didn't see the completed, outcome.
Thank you. Thule.
Thanks. Hey, I just wanted to reflect that it was my first field tour with you all, and it was super great to get to be in the woods. From my perspective, it was fantastic to see how the collaborative worked throughout the day, going in with just different opinions and being able to really talk through a lot of the discrepancies that Xander mentioned, and just recognizing, like, yes, terrain makes a very big difference. There was some hazard tree removal done during the fire. It sounds like that there's some uncertainty as to what came out during hazard tree removal and what came out as part of the timber sale along Rainier Road. And then I think it was super helpful to have industry partners there from my perspective, just to learn a lot about operations, terrain constraints, what that means, those constraints around getting across the roads and not, and just recognizing, like, the stand you start with really has a big impact on what the product looks like after the fact. And then also those environmental constraints and limitations. So I thought it was a really productive conversation, and it's fantastic to have so many participants and so much information shared. So very valuable. Appreciate it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Cody.
Hey, I guess my only comment, going back, is when we were out there, I know we were Rainier has a lot of area that we covered and looked at, and we started our day in an area that I thought we agreed that maybe not agreed, but we were looking at and said, this was pretty close to what we've discussed in the past or whatnot. And there's a lot of areas that I thought we did look at that did meet the intention, and then there were a few areas that we highlighted and we went to and spent a lot of time at that maybe wasn't discussed or in the past or covered. But I guess it would be good to know, and I guess this is kind of part of the process that we were looking for, is to get that feedback on what parts of this did we not like, or what areas did we not like, because I thought Rainier looked, for a lot of it, from what I heard out in the field, was good. But if that's not the case, like, it would be good to hear what parts, like if it's all of Rainier or what parts you didn't like or didn't meet intentions. Because I definitely was, it looked like there was just a few spots that weren't meeting intention, if that makes sense.
Well, on the field trip, I specifically was walking with Tara and pointing out exactly the units that I thought were way, way off target. And that was a good 50% of what we looked at on that day.
All right. Any further discussion here on feedback on the tour?
The points that stuck out in my mind, Cody, were the spot where there was it was a pretty big opening with the road splitting where the landing area was. And then the other spot that I remember there being the most, kind of negative opinion was the spot where there, I don't know, it's like 7 stumps in a row, if that jogs memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, and then the 2 landings specifically were highlighted. And then there were some comments about some dead trees early on in the field break, like large dead tree or dying trees, I should say, not dead.
The amount of
Which
hardwood, the amount of hardwoods that were cut down was one of the issues also.
Yeah, and I guess that should definitely be a future conversation as well, because the prescriptions were definitely designed to protect the hardwoods, and I know there's like some instances where they have to cut them because either they're a hazard or there's just no way around them, or there's sometimes just residual damage from the operation. So we definitely want to look more into that, because that would not be an intended thing from the Forest Service. We really wanted to protect the hardwoods. That's a lot of what these treatments were designed around, is releasing hardwoods.
The units right adjacent to those landings were in terrible shape. Some of them were down to 20% canopy.
Yeah, and I, again, like everything that we do is like we are thinking about all the conversations we had, and we all want to be on the same page about all of this. So I think having those formalized opinions in that paper, and like taking all these notes about what we did and didn't like, will be very, very helpful for future projects for sure.
One of the first units we stopped at had a bunch of little stems, so it met the basal area criteria, but I'd have to say the larger, healthier trees were gone, and the way they met the basal the basal square foot criteria was by leaving a lot of little stuff.
That was talked about too, and that the small, kind of sapling size trees, Tara said that was going to be treated in a follow-up, like a manual fuels treatment.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't share the memory that all the big healthy trees were gone from that stand either.
Jerry.
I wasn't on the field trip, but I wanted just in general to ask the people who know, what's the optimum basal area for a forest? Is there a rule of thumb, or?
The very difficult part about answering that is that it's so dependent. And, this is, I think, why the white paper doesn't outline anything too specific, because the circumstances change as you round let's just say even the ridge of a hill. Like sometimes site conditions change to where there's a lot of drought happening, and you might need to have a lower basal area it's really hard to answer. There are what we call relative site density. It gets really complicated because it's like an index number that we sometimes refer to try to explain how dense we might want something based on what species are there and density. It gets just really complicated. But
is that the stand density index you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
Basal
Yeah,
area?
So Lauren explains it way better than I can.
But does the stand density index translate to a basal area, square footage?
Yes, we can, but usually that's on like the stand level, if that makes sense. So the part it doesn't cleanly translate, but if you look at the site level, it does.
Okay, so I guess there's no answer.
Um,
I mean,
Jared,
I'm not saying that you're avoiding it, but I understand the difficulty.
it all depends. It depends on a million different things. You know, if
Okay.
the kind of the standard that we're all used to looking at is, you know, the right basal area range has been determined by a lot of research that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does and how that relates to suitable habitat to the spotted owl. And what they've found is that, you know, in nesting roosting habitat, having more than 120 square feet of basal area generally leads to better nesting roosting habitat outcomes. And foraging habitat is, you know, 80 square feet and up. And so that's
Okay.
what we're most used to dealing with has been determined by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But if it's somewhere that is outside of suitable habitat, then it depends on, you know, how productive or harsh the site is for whatever the tree species is in question. You know, if it's a super hot, arid south aspect slope, and you know there's a bunch of Doug fir on it, you know, if you wanted to promote survival of Doug fir in the future, you'd probably take that down to a lower basal area, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of things that influence it, but it's determined by. I think the first step is what are your management goals?
Okay. I didn't mean to sidetrack off. I thought, thank you.
Okay, well, again, very good discussion. I think we're going to try to bring this one to closure so we can keep moving on with our agenda. Up next, we have the North, I think it's North Trinity County. I hear North Lake. I hear North. Okay,
It's North Trinity County Communities Risk Reduction Project.
Thank you very much, Carol. So you were the one that wanted to bring this on, so start us off.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let the group know that the EA has been released and comments are due next Friday. No, they're due the 20th, next Wednesday. I do believe I just got an email this morning that there's some sort of meeting with the Forest Service. Can you guys give us an update on that?
Sure. I think Ben Sundell is leading a meeting on Tuesday. I believe it's at 9, but I can double check on that to go over questions on the EA. I know that Callan, who is the team leader and NEPA writer, and Tim Ritchie will be present for that. I unfortunately have a conflict because I would have liked to be there as well. But I highly encourage I highly encourage that. I know that it's hard to read something and have a mental image of what's on how to comment. What we do have which is unusual for us with NEPA is, you know, you have the Rainier and the Long Canyon and that whole peak fire emergency area as kind of an example of what the Greater North Trinity project is aiming to do. And so that, you know, we so rarely get to see some implementation to comment on how the rest of it should go. So that peak area covered about just under 10% of the larger North Trinity project area. And so that's a kind of a good way to anchor some of those comments in.
So that meeting is going to be here at the RCD, and is it going to be Zoomed, and how does the collaborative kind of key in on that?
That was reflected in the email, Carol, that Kelly sent out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a Zoom, but it is going to be
Other
here.
Kelly.
Yeah. Or other Kelly. I'm sorry. The L-Y Kelly, not the L-I
Yeah.
Kelly.
So I have a question for Kelly. You said the peak emergency declaration is 10% of all the acreage, but that gives you the ability to use that to define the project under the emergency declaration for all of the acres?
Same prescription, Jerry.
Yeah. So
I know, I just wanted to hear it.
Yeah, we utilize the prescriptions for the North Trinity project in that peak fire
In the
emergency
yeah.
implementation area.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Everyone's familiar, March 19th, I believe that's, or May 19th. I believe that's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I wanted to point out a couple things for the collaborative. So I have gone through the document and have some initial comments. And so I just wanted to point out that the prescription for projects within the entire project is the same as what the prescription was for the emergency response from the peak fire. So there is still potentially this discrepancy between, I think, what the collaborative understood was happening with the white paper versus the areas outside the OWL activity areas where it drops down to basal area prescriptions. So the report talks about how generally the basal area is like a 418 square foot per acre, really high dense fuel load. And so in these for fuel management zones, they're talking about it dropping down to 60 to 80 square feet, which is what we saw in Rainier, which is like a 80 to 85% decrease in basal area. So that was one thing I noted. The Forest, the volunteer fire department sent comments in about the prescribed burn areas. So I'm going to really try to get more information from Tim Ritchie, because there are large blocks that are going to be treated by prescribed burn only. So it's too dense or too steep for mastication or pile burning. So they're just saying we're going to burn it. And I'm like, but that's like right next to some big communities. So how do you safely burn without having done any fuel reduction ahead of time? And some of them have out parcels within the prescribed burn area. So they have fuel management zones around each out parcel or at the boundaries. But if you've got thousands of acres or hundreds of acres of dense fuel and you're just going to light them, I'm a little nervous as a fire department person.
What month is that they're going to do that?
Well, they don't specify, that's it. They have minimal details as far as where they're going to do control lines or how they're going to break them into smaller units. It's just like this is going to be prescribed burn. Anyways, just some of my initial comments. Yeah, it's a big document.
Well, it sounds like you'll have plenty of opportunity on Tuesday to get some feedback on those.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry.
I too have started reading it, and I think we just at the Tuesday meeting need to make sure that it's understood that the white paper applies to the entire landscape, not just to habitat and foraging, which was a misperception on Rainier.
Very good. Kelly?
Um, Point of clarification for Carol, the basal area estimations in the document are it takes everything into account. Obviously, areas of habitat are going to be much higher, have higher basal areas, larger.
Well, right now, I'm just talking about
Oh.
the areas out, so I totally understand. So it's 120 up to 180 basal square feet, depending on whether it's roosting, foraging, nesting, all that. I get all that. But then I'm specifically saying in the fuel management zones, the 300 feet on either side of a road or a ridge, those drop down to 60 to 80 square feet per acre.
And that's where there isn't habitat. So where there's not habitat, there's not that high of dense. It doesn't have that high a basal area, or it would have that structure. So
but it's still in the LSR. So that's just one of my comments is if it's supposed to be late successional reserve, where you're supposed to be headed towards old growth, how do you head towards old growth when you're down to 60 square feet per acre? That's one of my personal questions. So yeah, we can talk about it next week. I just want to let the collaborative know. The time frame's pretty tight. We're gonna have a meeting on Tuesday and comments are due on Wednesday.
There you go.
And if I didn't say this before, Tim Ritchie will be present at the meeting, so he'll be able to help answer your questions.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
Except he's not allowed to retire before they do the prescribed burns.
Absolutely. Can I vote on that too?
Anything else on North Trinity County?
No.
Project. Okay. Moving on. South Fork Mountain Project. Larry, I think you asked to have this put on there. You want to lead us off?
Yes, I did. I'm starting to feel like the Lone Ranger anymore here. It seems like everybody's worried to just let the collaborative white paper go down the drain and not really stick up and defend it. But that's what's happening on South Fork is they're following the lead that was set on Rainier Road, and they're applying that to the whole top of South Fork Mountain, 40 miles long. You know, at the beginning of the collaborative, I was pushing with the help of then Ranger Dan Dill to do a roadside shaded fuel break on the top of South Fork. I thought it'd be really beneficial. I live there. It's my backyard. I'm worried about fires on the mountain. But here we are. It's, 2026, and they've come up with basically a green timber sale for the part that's still alive, and the part that's dead, they're going to clear cut all that too. 180 landings in 40 miles, a landing every 2/10 of a mile. Well, I walked a whole bunch of this area that's going to be in the landings and going to be logged next to the landings. It's all diverse, old growth, late successional reserve. So every place they put a landing, they're going to be cutting down a bunch of old growth trees. This is going to be a complete disaster for the top of South Fork Mountain. We've had projects up there in the distant past where they opened up the top of the mountain like that. And what happens for years afterwards is the wind and the snow take all the trees on the boundary down because they grew up in a forest and all of a sudden they're left wide open. And so they're vulnerable to wind throw and snow down. That's what's going to happen up there. This is not going to reduce the fire danger. This is actually, in the long run, this is going to increase the fire danger. This is a terrible project. And it has nothing to do with roadside shaded fuel breaks. It has everything to do with getting the cutout. And that seems to be where the Forest Service has moved. And my fellow collaborative members, if you guys want to sit by and sign off on this, I guess that's your call, but I'm not going to be quiet about it. This is bad. This is totally against all the agreements we've ever come up with the collaborative are being thrown out the window. And the comment time ended on the 13th, so we can't even, anybody else who wanted to make comment on it, you're out of luck.
Hey, Larry. This is Deanna. I'm the planner on the South Fork Mountain Vegetation Management Project. And, even though the comment period ended yesterday, and we've received 13 letters, which I've read all of them now and going through and answering those comments. But we really do want to hear from the collaborative. And it wasn't until the comment period that I heard mentions of the Trinity Collaborative white paper. So if somebody could provide that to me, that would be great. And I think maybe that is something that could be really helpful, is just making sure that that white paper gets widely dispersed, because we tend to most look at in detail the comments that are submitted during our comment period. So, and I do really, we took, you obviously saw Epic's post, and you also saw the Time Standard article in which we just reiterated the ability for the public to comment. But really take a look at what our document actually has to say, because there is a lot in Epic's synopsis that isn't correct or it's misconstrued. So I would really, really highly urge everybody on this call to actually read the document itself. And I think that provides a lot of clarity. And then to your point about shaded fuel break, essentially what we are creating is a shaded fuel break, but we're not using the term shaded fuel break anymore because of just the developments in best available science. So we're shifting terminology, but it is essentially something similar.
A field break with no shade. Yeah, I get it. No, Kristen Lark has copies of the white paper, and we've been out in the field with her, and I have talked to her endlessly about this. So that you weren't provided with the white paper says to me a lot.
Yeah, if you all want to provide it to me, or I'll ask Kristen directly, but it would be great for our records. And we are systematically going through every single comment, coding any type of substantive comment. That means there's a cause plus effect, and we are going to be responding to those. So even though we are underneath the new regs, regulations, we have provided 2 comment periods on this project, and we also have had multiple field trips, as you know, and we are also taking an in-depth look at comments and any type of input on this project. And one last thing that I'll say, because I'm not the line officer, and so I don't, I'm not speaking for Kristen in any regard, but I will say that the Six Rivers in general is looking for these collaborative relationships. As we move forward with the new regs, we see them as fundamentally essential. And many of the, if we use a categorical exclusion, for example, we're looking for that collaborative group input. So I'll just say that for now.
All right. Thank you, Deanna. Jerry.
Deanna, I'm wondering, are your responses to the comments you're getting available easily?
Yeah, so we will have it on our Pinion Public website. That's the site where you got all of your information. It has all the specialist reports,
Okay.
parallel processes, decision documents, draft EA. And right now there is a document that was from the original scoping period. It's called the FAQ document. I think it can be found in the under scoping, if I'm remembering correctly, but we did provide an initial kind of response to the 10 comment letters that we received during our initial scoping period. I wasn't part of this project at that time, but I did create that document. So this reading all the letters, I think we have we have a good and robust response to a lot of the things, and we'd like to share that. So, and a lot of the things that are being commented upon are in our project record already. That's available to the public. It seems that maybe people did not read the project, the EA itself.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Kelly.
I just also want to add, these projects like North Trinity, Big Ranch, the South Fork Mountain project have been in the works for, couple few years. And so while they are currently under the new regulations, we have been working. They were dreamed of in a longer time frame. And I know specific to that South Fork Mountain project, I think the footprint is about 8,000 acres, but there's only about little over 1,000 or 1,200 maybe that have a commercial component. So it just be aware that it's not a looking for timber kind of scenario. It's what does that need to make the community safe, and that's kind of the lens that we are always looking at when we're designing these projects.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Janice.
Yeah, I'm hearing this conversation about new regulations, and I'm curious whether these are coming out of the Executive Order 14225 to expedite logging, including the emergency designation, which I understand the South Fork was done with. And is it possible to get a very brief summary of what has changed in the environmental and public review process based on this executive order and these new regulations?
Deanna, is that something you can address briefly?
Sure. Yeah. So we are each forest, and I'm not, I don't control what happens in the program of work and how projects are, prioritized and developed and sent down the line. I know that for Six Rivers, the majority of our projects are very old. Like most actually have been in development for like 10 years plus. But we are being asked to produce more timber. And that being said, our share of things on the Six Rivers is pretty meager. So I think that some tools have enabled us to move forward with really strategic projects that aim to protect communities, like Kelly was saying. The South Fork Mountain project is using the emergency situation determination, but we have done it. It has not changed the level of analysis and the level of work that has gone into this project, which has been in development for multiple years now. The only thing that it allows us to do is to have a focused EA, meaning that we have one really specific alternative that we present, and it also eliminates the objection period. But that being said, it doesn't mean that we're not taking into account everything that everybody is saying to us. So the second thing that you were saying is how do the new regulations shift things in terms of planning? There have been major shifts in many ways, but ultimately it seems as though, this is my broad takeaway, is that it really depends on how forest leadership wants to proceed. Meaning that on the Six Rivers in particular, I cannot speak for Shasta Trinity or the line officers themselves, but what I've taken is that we want to be as transparent as possible with our public and stakeholders. And therefore, we've been preparing things like our own forest schedule of proposed actions. We just have to take more of the initiative ourselves. So, and things that used to be statutory in nature are now less. There's more ambiguous language, like no 30-day comment period requirements. But our leadership is choosing, just like they did in South Fork Mountain, to provide a 30-day comment period, for example. So I think that it is a big push back onto the home units. And that's where the Trinity Collaborative and our groups and stakeholders really come into the picture to push for that too. So I think this is a really good meeting, and I'm really happy that I was a part of it today. So thanks. I just wanted to say that. I found it really interesting.
All right. Thank you, Deanna. Okay. In the spirit of time here, we are going to try to wrap this one up. Any last minute comments here before we close it out?
I just have a question. So the group had talked about amending the white paper to be more specific on some things. Is there any progress on that front? Nope. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Moving on. Jerry, you got any update for us on the wildfire camera?
We're waiting on 2 cameras. I'll speak to Ironside camera and then let Pat talk on Bonanza. Suddenly there's fees that we're dealing with on Ironside. We just found out there's about a $500 fee for the fire camera, and Travis at Velocity has to re-up his regular fee for having the Burnt Ranch school connection, which is $1,100. So it's about a $1,500 or $1,600 fee that we're waiting to see if the in-house person, Carrie Wicker, can adjust those fees or get them waived. So we're just waiting on process for that. Pat?
On the Bonanza King, we just got an email this morning from Carrie Wicker at in special uses that says she's in the middle of processing the cost recovery phase of this permit, which hopefully will get approved for a fee waiver because it's UC San Diego, fits the regulations for that. Then she can draft the final permit to be signed. And so I guess things are moving along, but there certainly are lots of little steps that I think Jerry and I were not aware existed in getting a special use permit, but I'm optimistic.
You know, we were so excited when these special use permits were brought in-house to Weaverville and thought, oh my gosh, we're really moving forward. But you think that taking a piece of paper from one office to the other office doesn't take a lot of hours, but as Pat said, there's a lot of little steps going on. So we're waiting.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for Pat and Jerry? All right. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Minersville Boat Ramp. We had a good report at our rec committee last week, and Carol, you can help me out here. Who's our project lead on Minersville again?
What's his name?
Marcus Nova.
Marcus.
There
Thank
you go. Thank you.
Marcus
Thanks,
Nova.
So, anyways, yeah, he did give us an excellent report. I think we're at the 90%, stage, and that's under review by DBOW. And just again, just a strong commitment to make sure we get the funds, the additional funds that that were secured for the project will be obligated by the end of this fiscal year. So, Monique, any other words of wisdom there on Minersville?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well for this committee. And if folks want to see the full notes from the recreation subcommittee, we can send it direct right before we have our next meeting, or when those will be summarized. That's my understanding too. Thank you for that summary.
Very good. Any questions on Minersville? Okay. Jennifer, you've been very patient. Are you still with us?
I am.
Oh, thank you very much. You're
I'm used to it.
okay.
So I don't have a whole lot to update for BLM. As you probably all know, I've been on detail to Southern California since November. I just got back officially this week, so kind of playing a little catch up with everything that Laura has been handling for the field office while I've been out. So I just wanted to cover a couple of things. Sounds like you guys are kind of in the loop on the Jennings Ridge project. That project did sell. We don't have an operating window yet, but the project was successful in actually selling. So thanks to everyone who provided feedback and went to all the field tours on that project. And there are more kind of in the queue that we're continuing to work on. I'm not sure if anyone's talked to you all about the significant changes in the fire program in the Department of the Interior. So those changes continue to be ever changing, and with some more significant changes starting for us on the 17th of this month. So apparently they have redrawn the boundaries of our organizational units as they pertain to fire. We just saw that map about 25 minutes ago. They take effect Monday. And so we will be seeing different, I guess the impact for you all is we will be seeing some different players in the picture than maybe we have been used to in the past. So some of our kind of FMO, fire management officer overhead that we have become used to may have different duty assignments. And so those will be changing for us. For Northern California, BLM as an example, we used to have one district FMO and one deputy district FMO. Across our district now we have 4 different units assigned. So we'll have 4 different fire management officers to engage with at the district, at the unit chief level. So it'll take a lot more relationship building, I think. So, and some of those supervisors are coming from different organizations. So they might be they were a Park Service FMO or a Fish and Wildlife Service FMO. Now they have management responsibility across all of the agency's land, all of the DOI agency's land in that zone. So we didn't know that was coming. Those decisions were made this week, and we, like I said, I found out about an hour ago that I now have 2 different fire management officers to interact with rather than the one that I've been used to. So more changes to come, and we'll get through the fire season, whatever that may bring in whatever way possible. So, and then I just wanted to end with some campgrounds. So all the campgrounds for the BLM in Trinity County are open, and they all have hosts. So happy to say that is the case this year. Some of the changes, and I think Laura probably covered it in the rec meeting with you all, is the Douglas City campground is now almost all under reservation with the exception of 6 sites. So everything is reservable under rec.gov. There's 6 kind of first come, first served sites. And then both Steelbridge and Junction City are now in rec.gov. They're about half and half. So half the sites are first come, first served, and half the sites are reservable. So trying to get at, the feedback that we got from people that the campgrounds in some areas might be better used if people could actually make a reservation rather than packing up their family and crossing their fingers there'd be a campsite when they get there. So yeah, so that's up and running, and we're happy to report that so far the season, they've only been open about a couple weeks, but going well. So that's it for BLM. I know we're short on time. I'm back now, so if anybody has any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. And fingers crossed, I'm not going anywhere, at least through fire season. So
very good.
I should be around. Thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Jennifer. Welcome back. Any questions for Jennifer? Okay, Forest Service updates. We're going to start off with the Mad River District. Is that you, Deanna? You got anything for us?
6 Rivers.
Sorry, guys.
I mean 6 Rivers. I'm sorry. Yep. Mad River. Yep.
What Sorry, just for a quick reference, what do you usually say for your updates?
Oh, we generally get personnel kind of updates. We get project updates. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so were you able to, were you included in the email for our schedule of proposed actions forest-wide email?
No, at least I didn't see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we should get you on that list. So we did just send out our April quarterly, we're calling it schedule of proposed actions because there used to be an auto-generated report, and now each forest is generating their own, well, some forests. I know that the Klamath, the Chastity, and the Six Rivers are developing their own schedule of proposed actions that they're sending out. And so we'll make sure that you're on that email list. But let me pull that up and I will kind of just tell you what's going on. We just closed, like I said, on the South Fork Mountain project. We have a few other projects that are in development. I think most of them are not in Trinity County. So off the top of my head, the only one that is in Trinity County besides South Fork Mountain would be the Bucktail project, which is still in development at this time. And then I think not Rowdy Divide, Robber's Roost, which is still a ways away from coming into development. Kristen Lark is on leave. Her acting is Tad Hare. And then he has a number of sub-acting people. So that's the reason I'm here. Raquel Thatcher has also been tapped to do other things. So yeah, I think that's about it for the Trinity County related projects.
All right. Thank you, Deanna. Any questions for Deanna? All right. Moving on to the Trinity National Forest. Kelly, Cody, who wants to start that one off?
I'll start it for the Shasta Trinity. We've talked a lot about our big projects, which is North Trinity and Big Ranch. The Junction City project is still moving forward with Watershed Center as the lead. That they've been great to work with. If there's any other, so those are the next ones coming out of the hopper. If there's any other specific project updates, I'm happy to help. Also, Hayward Flat, I know there's interest usually from this group in that. We will be opening that campground for Memorial Day. The fuels work isn't totally done. As you may have heard, we have, as a Forest Service, some reductions in workforce, and some of those work in contracting. So we had a contract in that still wasn't even advertised. So we have pulled that. We will be doing the fuels work in-house. We have started it. We're getting in. I think Cody, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're getting in an air curtain burner. And so we will have it open for Memorial Day weekend, but then closing it to complete the fuels, the removal of all the fuels piles. So hope that plan is to have that done real quick and get that campground fully open and functioning. And we had a good plan, and it just didn't quite work out. So apologize for that. Any specific questions on anything else on the forest?
Hey, Kelly, you're really getting an air burner? You're gonna have it?
It's sitting there now.
Yeah, we're borrowing it from the Mendocino.
Oh, borrowing. Okay. Yeah.
So
they've been burning since Wednesday, I think, Kelly.
Awesome.
Yeah, I talked to Tara, and so yeah, So they're burning through next Wednesday, then they have to let it cool down for a couple days for the campers to come in, and then they'll fire it back up. So the only comment here was I really, really appreciate Forest Service trying to get it open. It was supposed to be open this weekend, the week before Memorial Day. I appreciate them trying to get everything fixed. I hope that this is a lesson learned for Tannery and the other campgrounds where they're proposing work in the future, that it takes a while to recover a campground from that intensive a logging operation. So Kelly, I have a question maybe Cody can answer. What's the status of the timber sale for the Bowerman Ridge Cooperative Fuel Project? The areas along Highway 3 and east of Covington Mill? Did that sale go through? Did someone buy it? Do they have any schedule?
We had a bid opening this morning. It was advertised SBA, small business. And so we have a bidder, and we are confirming that all of the checks and balances for SBA qualification are met, and we also have it advertised concurrently for a May 28th award, not SBA. So if all of those qualifications are met, we'll be pulling the concurrent advertisement. And if they are not, we'll try again on May 28th.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Just to let you know, so the North Trinity Wildfire Reduction Project, their masticator is working through all the SPI stuff right just to the north of there. So they started chewing stuff up this week. So it'd be nice to get that corridor cleaned up while they're up there already working.
Absolutely. Won't that be great to have it done?
Yeah.
Just love completing things.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other questions for Kelly? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Kelly. We're going to move on to other items, partner updates. I think we covered kind of rec committee stuff on Minersville. RCD, Clay, anything from Kelly or?
No, I did not get anything to report. I guess the Ferrari brought up what we're calling the McConnell project, and that's getting going. Now we got 2 running, or our contractors do, and yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
Very good. And then Watershed Center, Xander, you want to?
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick. I think most of our seasonal staff is on now. Got folks kind of scattered all across the county and beyond. I think most pertinent for this group is, at least on my calendar, we've got a field trip scheduled for the Junction City Community Risk Reduction Project, June 12th.
Correct. Yep.
And so we're working through the planning on that. All of our specialist reports and everything are due in, I think 3 weeks or so. And I'll also try and get, all the supporting information, trip itinerary, maps, and a write-up out to the group by the end of this month, so that folks will have time to kind of go over the trip and get their thoughts and questions together before we meet to go out in the field. But unless anybody has specific questions, I'll leave it there.
Very good. Thank you, Xander. Any questions for Xander? All right, not seeing any. Don't believe we have Fish and Wildlife representation today. Julie, you are up.
Thanks. Just a couple quick things. Our governing board meets in Trinity County in early June, June 3rd and 4th. Our meeting materials, including agenda packet and whatnot, and opportunity RSVP are going to be posted on our website next week. So keep an eye on that. I can pop the the web address in the chat shortly. Secondly, we're watching a couple legislative initiatives. We are reviewing the revised budget that was put out by the state legislature yesterday. So just digging into that. At first glance, it's looking a little bit better than originally thought in January, but we'll be able to report back at our board meeting and beyond. So that's still the process is it gets signed by the governor in June, mid-June, and hopefully is in place for July 1 for the state fiscal year to begin. We're watching a couple legislative initiatives, AB 35, which is an assembly bill that is hopefully helping with the rollout of the Proposition $4, the state Proposition $4. So currently all those dollars or the guidelines for those dollars have to go through a pretty robust process. So that piece of legislation will hopefully speed up the rate at which we can get those dollars on the ground to kind of help increase pace and scale, as well as there's a lot of recreation dollars in there. So thinking deferred maintenance and other rec needs across the state. Sorry. Third thing, there is a law that was passed last year to require prevailing wage for fuel reduction work, which takes effect July 1st of 2026. We've been working closely with the California Department of Industrial Relations. We have a lot of questions the info we've gotten so far doesn't really set anybody up for success. There's still a whole lot of unknowns around that. So we are beginning the process to try to bump the implementation of that out. So we will let you know more as we know more. There is an FAQ available online for that if anybody's interested. Yeah, those are the big ones. Happy to field any questions, and I'll pop the web address for our board materials into the chat.
Thank you very much, Julie. Any questions for Julie? All right, not seeing any. All right, thank you. Concluding business, I don't have anything for facilitation team. As you notice, Kelly was not present today, but yeah, no report there. Field tour planning. So as Xander mentioned, we do have June 12th locked in for that month. Any thoughts on August? That would be the next month where we would have a tour possibility. Not sure if Cody or Kelly or anybody has any thoughts on August.
So Cody, you had mentioned earlier a field tour for Big Ranch. It's on the agenda. Is that not?
He was saying in a month. That would put it in July, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know if August is too late. Cody, what's your thoughts on Big Ranch?
I forget our original date that we had on paper, but I would just say whatever date we had and then pushing it out that month. We still want to have all the same meetings we were talking about, just slightly delayed.
Well, I think the goal previously was to have it prior to the June 18th sit down with Tara on Big Ranch.
Right.
So that would put it kind of out in July sometime. Possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe June 2. I would like to get with Tara before and just talk through what North Trinity County is going through and all that. Sorry, I didn't come super prepared for that.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get back to you. Give us another week or so, and we'll get back to you on that.
Sure. Now, a suggestion that occurred several meetings, or maybe a couple meetings ago, was pilot. We never got around to really locking that one in. My understanding is a fair amount of work's been done on pilot. Is there maybe interest to pencil in pilot for August, or do we have a question? Oh, Xander, there we go.
Yeah, I like to suggest or maybe ask if there's any possibility we could squeeze Big Ranch and Junction City in on the same day. I mean, they're relative neighbors. in the county project area wise. And Junction City project's pretty straightforward, I think, as far as what we're looking to do. So I just wanted to put that out there if that helps get Big Ranch moved up.
All right. Well, Cody, you want to take that to Tara?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. I will.
Okay. You'll let us know. Jerry.
I'd really like to see the pilot project, but also leave it, given our new protocols for reviewing projects, let's leave it up to agencies as their schedules demand.
Sure. Okay. So we'll kind of leave August open for now until we hear back from Forest Service folks.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
maybe put it in pencil, pilot project.
Sure. There we go. Okay. Agenda building. Anything we need to see on the, what would that be? That'd be the July meeting. Any agenda items? Arnold, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to have an agenda slot for possible clarifications of our position, including possible amendments to the white paper as we determine is needed. Specifically, in my mind, a few topics came up today that seems like we need to be clearer about. To what extent should our suggested for leaving the biggest and best trees and lots of shade be pursued on all lands or just on our lands? To me, it seems backwards and incorrect to say here's some nice LSR, but it doesn't happen to have an L on it that we've noticed in the past 2 years. So we can open it up way up. That's not how to treat LSR. It seems like you should designate it LSR if you want or something like that. I think we need to discuss that. I think we need to discuss the business about landings. In fact, putting 2 half-acre landings across the road from each other. In my mind, eventually, to the extent that results in opening up LSR, or basically clear-cutting LSR, it seems like at some point in the future, we as a society and soon we as a collaborative ought to consider whether it might be less expensive or more desirable in the long run to, by gosh, skid logs across the road rather than clear cut LSR for duplicate adjacent landings. Or on the Rainier Road, where there was that line of big stumps, some people say 7, but I think everyone that was on the tour knows where it was. There were different possible explanations for that. One is that they were near the road, maybe they were hazard trees, maybe they were overhanging. Another one that was offered was there was a skid trail right behind them. Well, in that case, it was a straight shot skid trail. You didn't have to turn the trees around existing trees. I felt that the branches of the trees you were towing might brush against the big old trees that were missing, but they were incapable of damaging them on a straight shot. So I think we need to discuss that kind of stuff because we haven't been clear or specific enough about skid trails and landings for the sale administrator or for the operator to be sure about what we want and certainly to comply with what we want if they're not sure. So all that's my way of saying agenda slot for clarification of collaborative group positions, including, if necessary, in the white paper.
Very good. That will happen, Arnold. It will be on that July meeting agenda.
Hey,
Which
Jim,
is
will
pretty
you put
far
a
away.
place, we put a, sorry, put a placeholder in for the FACA update?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
I have it in my notes, but thank you for the follow-up. Yeah, so there's definitely some follow-up needed on that FACA relationship. Monique.
Both of those things seem pretty far away. There's not much we can do about it, but we do the best we can with the schedule we have, but it's an uncomfortable schedule under the circumstances.
Well, one suggestion, Arnold, would be maybe that fuel subcommittee take on the white paper amendment conversation and maybe bring some recommendations to the larger group. I mean, that would just be one way to expedite and not wait too much, but just a thought. Monique.
Yeah, well, that might save us having to wait for 2 more months. So yes.
Correct. Yep. So someone wants to take the initiative on that? Go for it.
We'll start elbowing each other to take the initiative.
There you go. Monique.
Hey, I was just going to request that any documents that will be discussed during the upcoming meeting be sent to the group in advance, just so people can see those, become familiar with them, and be aware of everything that is to be discussed. Of course, there are scenarios where that's going to be hard to do, but things like the white paper, I think, could be sent to us at the next meeting. And then for this meeting, I don't think I ever got the recommendations of projects and general policies document. Maybe there was a discussion on that separately, but something I could have missed it too. I don't know.
Yeah, that was sent out.
When
Monique.
proposal got sent out.
Kelly sent that out. Yeah.
Okay, I might have missed it. I was looking back at my emails. I looked back at this invite and I didn't see it in that invite.
Yeah, it wasn't in the invite. It was a separate email. Yep.
Okay,
Arnold.
thank you.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's an agenda item or not, but we had trouble before with a previous supervisor, forest supervisor of the Shasta T said assured us several times that our shade fuel break proposal was one of his highest priorities or his highest priorities. And then it developed that his planners had no knowledge of it. And then Deanna had never heard of it today. So it seems like somehow, I don't think we should even wait till the next meeting, but we should encourage the forests we deal with to circulate our position that they say is really important and really valuable, circulate it to the people that ought to know about it. It's not, we can't go office to office handing them out, or it shouldn't be our job. We provide them to the forest, and the forest should, if in fact they value it and think it's really important, they should do a little better than they have done.
Thank you for saying that, Arnold. That my thoughts too, and they signed off on it. You know, when we went to the Board of Supervisors.
I guess I will say that that has been circulated around. I'm just bringing that up because we have had more people come into this meeting that may not have reference of all the things that are being discussed.
But more people would not be on the mailing list, so that would be the agency's responsibility to get it out to more people.
I don't disagree with you on that. I agree.
All right, we are ready to wrap it up, but we're going to get Cody one more opportunity here to. You still have your hand up, Cody?
No, it's all right. I basically was just going to say that we have been circulating it on the district. There's just probably been times where we sent it out and it wasn't on somebody's priority to review it, but everybody, at least on the Shasta Trinity, that's part of the planning team, has received that document.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for your patience. We have gone over a little bit, but actually better than I was anticipating. So appreciate everyone's patience once again and contribution, participation, a lot of good discussion today, and definitely need for some follow up on some of these items. So we hope we'll get those addressed at our next meeting. So thank you all once again for your presence today and participation. Trust everyone will have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks,
We are-
everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye, all.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.